Hey guys, I'm Jordan. I'm gonna make just a really raw and open video about living with epilepsy, having seizures, talking about things that I've been through, and honestly just making it because there's not a lot of videos about people and their experience with epilepsy, going through seizures, and I think it's important to put these videos out there to make sure that people know they're not alone. Other people have epilepsy, other people have seizures, and we're going through the same emotional things and terrifying things that some other people are also going through. Just to jump right into it, I did not grow up having epilepsy. I had no idea I had it till I was 14, but growing up, I was pretty regular, normal child. It was about when I was about 8 years old, my parents started noticing that I would stare off into space sometimes, and now we're assuming that was my signs of having epilepsy. And I just remember they would get so mad at me, especially at dinner time, because we had wallpaper, striped blue and white wallpaper, and I could not help myself. I would just get into this trance and people would start talking to me and I would have no idea anyone was even talking to me. I was just so in this trance, and my parents would get so upset at me. And there was one time I was even holding my plate of food, walking to the table, and I saw the wallpaper, and I just dropped my plate. My plate broke, food went everywhere. I just couldn't help it. Just looking at this wallpaper, I would just zone out. So there's little signs there. Then I had my first seizure when I was 14. I was a freshman in high school. It was May, so school year is almost done. It was in Spanish class. That day I was wearing a dress, and I remember right before school started, I was with my friends and I had these shorts, and I was like, maybe I should put these shorts on under my dress, like just in case, I don't know. So right before the bell rang to go to class, I put some shorts on just in case. And I'm so thankful I did, because I went to Spanish class, we were taking a test, and all I remember is waking up in an ambulance, and I was just in and out. I mean, I didn't feel anything. I just remember being taken to an ambulance. One of the assistant principals was there. She had my shoes, and I was just so like groggy in and out. I was so tired I couldn't even be nervous. I just didn't know what was going on. And then we get to the hospital, and I see my mom in the waiting room, and they just told us basically had a seizure in class, and they called the ambulance. And I just remember me and my mom both were like, no, like, she didn't have a seizure. Like, I'm sure she just passed out for some reason. I remember I was on antibiotics for something, and so I was thinking, well, maybe I just had a bad reaction to antibiotics and I just passed out. Like, maybe that's what it was. Because no, I would have a seizure. Why would I have a seizure? No, it's not a seizure. We're just trying to convince ourselves that I just passed out. But my Spanish teacher told us, like, it was a seizure. Like, I saw you. Like, you didn't just pass out. Like, you had a seizure. So and thankfully everyone said, we're so happy you had shorts on because your dress rode up, and so we're just so happy you had shorts on, because that would have been very embarrassing, because my Spanish class was I was a freshman, my Spanish class was mainly full of sophomores. So very, very embarrassed to even go back to school after that. It was very awkward. Then probably a month later, we got the results back from after doing an EEG to determine if I had epilepsy, and usually they don't diagnose you with epilepsy unless you have 2 or more seizures, and this was my first one, but my neurologist at the time said that the results for my EEG were so bad that he was just going to diagnose me with epilepsy and start me on medication. So, started medication, started on Keppra, and everything was fine, but being at that age, like, a lot of things started to change because I had epilepsy that was really hard to deal with. And now that I'm thinking back, like, it wasn't like so devastating things, but when you're 14, it's like the worst thing in the world. And it was the summertime, and my family has a lake house, and so swimming is like a huge part of what we do every summer. And I had to wear a life jacket the whole time, wasn't allowed to go by the water by myself. And 14, you want to do everything on your own. I could not take a shower at home by myself. And so it was just very frustrating, all the changes, but it wasn't as bad as the second time I had a seizure. So my second seizure so my first one was in 2009. My second one was in 2013. I'd been doing great with my medication. Like, I would even forget that I had epilepsy. Like, what? Like, no, not really any side effects. I think it's supposed to make you sleepy, but I would just take my medication at night and I was fine. Well, there's one night that I forgot to take my medication. And the next night, so almost 24 hours later, I had been working at a restaurant. I worked at a restaurant. I drove home, and it was about 9:30. Drove home, went to the bathroom to get ready for bed. It was a Sunday night, and all I remember, well, first off, had a seizure when I was in the bathroom, and I hit the wall. And I don't remember any of this. I don't feel anything when I have seizures, but I hit the wall, and I hit the wall that's connected to my brother's room, and he was awake at that time, and thank goodness he came to check on me, and he wasn't just like, oh, she must have just hit something, I don't know. He came to check on me. The door's locked. I'm not answering. And he looks underneath the door, and all he can see is me on the floor shaking. So, and my parents are asleep, so he runs to my parents' room, tells them they come in, they can't get the door unlocked, and my dad's about to break the door open. And my brother has this trick on how to unlock doors, and he remembered, and so he did it. And my mom went in, they got me, they put me in bed, and finally I come to, and when I had the seizure, I was taking my pills. They're little white pills. I was taking my pills, and they came out, and my family didn't know what it was. They thought it was drugs, and so they said that they're asking, are you taking drugs? And I was like, no. And they're like, what day is it? I don't know what day it is. And finally I come to, my dad is sitting at the end of my bed looking at me. My brother is standing in the door just like looking at me, and my mom is pacing around the room trying to call any nurse friends, doctor friends she has to ask them what to do. And finally I was just like, what are y'all doing in my room? You're scaring me. Like, why are y'all staring at me? And my dad said, you had a seizure. And the first thing I said was, are you kidding me? Because I knew that I couldn't drive for 6 months. And by this time, I was in college and working a part-time job at a restaurant, and my schedule was kind of crazy. And I knew I was going to have to depend on my family to take me everywhere, and I think that was the hardest part about that time that I had a seizure, is not being able to drive. And I know that's a luxury, and I'm very, it's just such a small thing, but with that, it really takes a toll on you, because you feel like such a burden on your family when they have plans and you have to say, oh, like, but can you also take me to work? Oh, I need someone to take me to class at this time. And we ended up having a routine, but I could tell like it just wasn't ideal. And there's a lot of times I cried and felt like a burden, and there's a lot of times where I couldn't go to events with my friends because there's no one to take me. And I live kind of far out, like I do like live in the country and farther away than all of my other friends. So, and my friends at the time were great. Like, they would pick me up and I would always pay them. Even if they didn't want it, I would always be like, here's $5 or $10 or, thank you. And I would just like run away before they could try to give me my money back. But you really do, like, it's just, especially at that age, what was I, like, I was 19, almost 20, and it was just really hard. Just having to, when you're trying to be independent and you have to depend on all these people, and it was hard. But then I got my license back after 6 months, and it was great. And so the next time I had a seizure, it was, I think it was 2 years ago, and it was the same thing. I forgot to take my medication. So 24 hours later, I had a seizure. It was same place, about the same time, but my brother had moved out, and my dad wasn't there. It was just my mom sleeping in her room, and I was in the bathroom, and I don't think I was working, but I was in the bathroom, and I was by myself this time. I woke up by myself, and the way I woke up was I was standing, which is weird. I didn't wake up on the ground. I was standing, and I had these necklaces on the bathroom counter, and I was just like holding them and looking at them like in the mirror, and just like all dazed off. And then finally I just looked at myself in the mirror, and I was just like, it's like I just woke up standing up, and I was just like, what just happened? Like, what? And I just knew that I had been out of it for a while. And right before I went to the bathroom, I had texted my boyfriend at the time that I was getting ready for bed. And I texted him at like, I think it was 9:45. Went to the bathroom. It does not take me long to get ready for bed. Like, brush my teeth, go to the bathroom, take my contacts out. And when I looked at my phone, it was about 10:45. So I knew a lot of time had passed by. And so I thought, well, maybe I just had a staring spell, and I was just standing there out of it, because how do I not remember standing up? But then I noticed I had bloody scratch marks on my back. So I'm assuming somehow I fell down. And also the next morning, I was completely sore, and that's one thing after you have a seizure, you just feel so sore. But this particular time, I went to my mom, woke her up, and I said, I'm pretty sure I just had a seizure. And I slept in bed with her that night, and I just remember feeling so scared, because you just feel like you have no control of your body. Like, you have no, I just remember just feeling so terrified of just dying. And I knew it was because I forgot to take my medicine, but you just have all these fears, like, well, what if I do take my medicine, like, my body just gets used to my medicine, it just stops working, and I'm having a seizure when I'm driving? What if when I'm pregnant one day and I have a seizure, or if I'm just driving even by myself and I hurt somebody else, I crash into somebody else? Like, I just felt like I had no control, and it terrified me, not knowing what could happen. But now I have an alarm on my phone and a reminder on my phone to take my medicine every night. I always say I'm not going to forget again, but I'm never going to forget again. And they did change the law that now, instead of having to wait 6 months to drive, they decreased it to 3 months, so that was nice. And I feel like I'm just so lucky that nothing worse happened to me when I had those seizures in the bathroom, that I didn't hit my head, that I didn't break my spine. Someone we know in our town just had a seizure, and he injured his C6, and luckily he's okay, but it was to the point where he could have almost been paralyzed. And I know someone that had a seizure in our town. She's a year younger than me. She flipped her car and is having all these surgeries, and there's someone else that she has had surgery and they moved part of her brain, and she's still in high school, and she, they thought that cured it, and now she's still having seizures again after going through that terrible surgery. And I just feel so lucky that as long as I take my medicine, it helps, and I'm just so thankful, and I hope that it continues to be this way and that it doesn't get worse. I'm thankful every day that this is what I have and that it's not worse, and I look up to the people that have it worse than I do, and I just think that they're so strong, because it's really hard and you feel very vulnerable and scared a lot. But I just want to come on here and share my story. My voice cracked. And I've been seizure free for about, how long have I been seizure free for? You think I should be counting the days. The last one I had was May 22nd of 2016. So I think 3 years. About maybe 4. But it's been long enough that I've forgotten, so I'm very excited about that. But there's it's gonna be a journey living with this. One thing I'm most nervous about is being pregnant one day. I am married, and we don't plan on having kids anytime soon, but there's a lot that goes in to having a baby when you do have epilepsy and you're taking medication for epilepsy, because the baby could have complications, and it's just, they consider it just a high-risk pregnancy. So and there's not too many videos about that either, and so I think one day when it comes the time, the whole process of what we go through if I do have seizures, if the baby does have complications, you know, I think that's something that should be put out there, and warning, and or even, you know, if something does happen, just how to get through it would be nice, and any advice of things, tips that I've learned for other women that have epilepsy then really want to have a baby can go through. But thank you so much for listening to me and my story. I hope it helped some people, or brought some awareness to others, and I'm just happy I was able to share my story. So thank you.